I think I fell in love with you. I think you might have felt it too. But in the morning you were distant as the ocean. Oh, do the birds call to me? Do the birds call to thee? Are they calling out our names? Do the birds call to me? Do the birds call to thee? Are you still ashamed? Well, my memory plays tricks on me about this time of night. Thinking about that summer on the river. Nearly 16 and naked as Jesus Christ, with a heart that was ready to be broken. Oh, do the birds call to me? Do the birds call to thee? Are they calling out our names? Do the birds call to me? Do the birds call to thee? Are you still ashamed? Oh, my memory plays tricks on me about this time of night. Thinking about that summer by the river.
That is absolutely beautiful.
Thank you.
It really is.
Thank you.
I hear a little bit of Tom Waits in there, a little bit.
Thank you.
So I wish more of our authors would be able to sing as an opening.
Yeah.
So once again, we were talking about Burnt Wood, and the beautiful song that we just heard is related to the story that you're going to read.
Yep.
So talk a little bit about the setup of the story.
Sure. So, that song is called Dear Alex, and it's sort of a letter from Tanner, one of the characters on this trip that we on this story, to the other character, sort of reminiscing about this summer long ago. When I wrote these stories a couple of years ago, I was just sort of thinking about how frustrating it is that we struggle with the concept of fluidity of sexuality and of love, and that's so frustrating, and that pressure can come from so many places. But as a teenager, I think you're teenage all life, we're trying to figure out who we are, but gosh, the battlefield of of growing up as a teen, I think, is just a hard place. It can be easy for some and it can be hard for others. So this story was sort of an attempt to just sort of explore a little bit about that. And this is kind of the first part of that story. So we have, we're going to follow Tanner and Alex. And the first part of the story is called The Float Trip. I'll start with a couple quotes here. So this is a quote from Aldo Leopold. A river or a stream is a cycle of energy, from sun to plants to insects to fish. It is a continuum broken only by humans. And the next quote that I think balances out and gets hits to what this book is sort of feels like is from Bret Easton Ellis from American Psycho. It strikes me profoundly that the world is more often than not a bad and cruel place. Okay, so The Float Trip. The first time the boys kissed was in 1999 along the banks of the Burntwood River, 40 miles northeast of Wondrous Bluffs, Wisconsin. Tanner's mom, Winnie, lingered by the driver's side door of the beat-up Toyota Previa. Rust was curling around the wheel wells, and the tires were worn smooth. Her forget-me-not blue summer dress fluttering lightly in the breeze. Are you sure you've got everything? Yep, Mom, we're good. One more hug. She squeezed her son. He hugged her back, something most 16-year-olds would be reluctant to do in front of their best friend, but Tanner was already her touchy-feely was always her touchy-feely kid. Alex, take care of him, okay? Sure thing, Miss Mitchell, Alex said as he dropped the tent in the canoe and adjusted his faded Burntwood Loggers baseball cap over his long crop of shaggy summer blonde hair. Winnie got back in the van and turned the key in the ignition. She rolled down the window. I'll pick you guys up around 1 tomorrow at the landing just downstream from the Waters cabin. Sounds good, Mom. Bye. Have fun and be safe. School starts next week, Winnie shouted out of the window. She turned her face to the road, but her eyes lingered on the rearview mirror. She whispered a few words under her breath and brought her right hand to a marble-sized piece of agate hanging at her neck. As she pulled out of the parking lot, a swirl of dust danced off the back of her car and wrapped around her son like a cloak that might protect him from danger. The boys watched as Tanner's mom pulled onto the dirt road that led back to the county highway. The balding tires spun and kicked up gravel and dust as the egg-shaped van rolled away. An arm stuck out the window and waved wildly until the vehicle was out of sight. They swatted away the dust that swarmed them. Moms are so weird, Alex said. I was waiting for her to jump in the canoe. Tanner picked up the fishing rods and slid them behind the rear seat of the canoe. They stuck out the back like two long antennae. Totally, he laughed. This is so awesome. We're like all alone, camping on our own. It's just one night, Alex said with a shrug, tempering Tanner's excitement. Alex and Tanner had been best friends since they were toddlers. Both kids had photo albums to document the stages of their friendship. First, there were the diapers with frosting on their faces stage, sitting at a child-sized picnic table. Next, it was the dress-up stage with the two 6-year-old boys as pirate superheroes at Halloween, sledding at 9, then summer camps and fishing at 11, slam dunk contests in Tanner's driveway as 13-year-olds. As the boys in the photographs aged, Tanner slid further to the background in the birthday party and sleepover shots. Nowadays, Alex was the only reason Tanner could still stand in the circle of popular kids in the mornings before the first bell rang. I don't know anyone else in our class that's camped in the river without their parents, Tanner said. Alex nodded as he put the red Coleman cooler into the center of the canoe and handed Tanner a paddle. You ready? Alex asked. The grin on his face was as wide as the river they were about to enter. Ready. Tanner grabbed the paddle and smiled at Alex, noticing how the morning sunlight splashed through the gap in the aspens and landed on Alex's shoulders, creating a glowing aura. They were excited when Tanner's mom drove away, but the real adventure began the moment the canoe slid into the Burntwood. The world shrinking to the width of the river. Now they got to make the rules. They were in control. They could swear at the top of their lungs. They could burp and fart as loud as they wanted. They were the adults now. They were on their own. The boys had the entire day to fish, explore, and camp. The only necessity was to reach the takeout by 3 p.m. the next day. It took about an hour for the boys to get comfortable navigating the bends, boulders, and logs of the Burntwood. But after a few bumps and fumbles in communication, they began to sync up and find the rhythm. Rock up on our right, Alex called out. Iceberg straight ahead, Tanner responded with a muddled attempt at a British accent. Tanner plunged his paddle into the water at his left side, tilting the blade and pushing downstream to veer the tip of the vessel to the left. Alex paddled hard on the right and watched the submerged boulder float past. As Alex looked back at Tanner with a look of delight on his face. That was a huge one. A freaking boat breaker. Nice work, Captain Mitchell. Thank you, Captain Price. A half hour later, they hit slower, fishable water. What do you say we make a few casts? Alex asked. I know we've got plenty of food, but nothing beats fresh fish. Tanner agreed and passed a rod up to Alex. Tanner was in the stern, slowly paddling and steering the canoe downstream. Alex was in the bow, casting at every log and boulder he could reach. Any time an enticing hole appeared, something capable of holding fish, Tanner pushed backwards with his paddle, trying to slow their progress and give Alex a fair shot at landing his shining spinner into the deep water. What if you hook into a monster? Tanner asked. My dad told me there's this pool somewhere around here where he once hooked into a fish so big it almost pulled him in. He had to break the line. That would be sweet, dude. Things been okay with him? Tanner asked, veering his gaze from the fading bruise on the back of Alex's neck. Yeah, it's fine, Alex said, keeping his eyes on the river. Alex reeled in his lure and spotted his next target, a swirling eddy on the far side of the river, 30 feet to their right. The water above the turn was fast and choppy, but it calmed into a smooth pool created by a little dugout in the riverbank where an old pine had fallen into the water years before. It hung low like a forgotten skeleton, bleached white by the sun and long stripped from its bark and needles. Alex shifted in his seat and spun his cap backwards. Tanner, slow us down a bit. I'm going to try and hit that hole. There's got to be a fish in there. All right, I've got you. That's from the float trip, and the boys' adventure kind of picks up from there. So you'll have to get the book to find out what happens.
Oh my God, you left us at a cliffhanger. Are you going to read another short story from the book?
Yeah, I've got another short section. It's a little shorter, but I think one of my biggest. So I mean, I'm sure everyone feels this way. I guess I don't know. But I obviously get nervous before a release. There's a lot out of your control. This is so different than what I've written before, and so you just never know. I mean, it doesn't matter. The art is done, and the fun part was writing it and creating it and seeing it go. But there's always, the hope that it connects with somebody, and so I'm going to read, so that I, at least to show some of the other part of the story, I'm going to read a brief scene from one of the later stories called "Lights Out." Probably one of the darker stories in the collection. This is about an eye doctor that is bad, is just a bad person, is all the ways a terrible person could be in a way, and they're a pediatric doctor, and people put their faith in them, and there's a responsibility with that. And so I think, and I work with kids at my day job, so I was just sort of thinking about, it's like, what do I not want to become? And this is a scene from later on in the story, as he's getting his comeuppance. So this is from Lights Out. Jeffrey touched the door frame as if he were testing the heat of a pan just pulled out of the oven, ready to retract his fingers if something lashed out. A gray shape fluttered in the lower portion of his vision like a tea bag blowing in the wind. He swatted at it, expecting to see a moth chasing the light in the bathroom, but there was none. The only sound coming from the bathroom was the insect-like buzz from the lone light bulb. No one could be in there. It was impossible. The bathroom was tiny as shit. If he had it his way, he would have torn this entire place down and built something that didn't need the water shut off in the winter. Something with internet access, maybe a hot tub in the back and a heated garage, not just one small-ass bathroom. Jeffrey slid his phone out of his pocket and looked at the screen. No service. He would have to drive to the top of the hill if he wanted to call the police. He put his phone away and rubbed at his left eye again, wondering why he couldn't open it. He was too goddamn young to be having a stroke, he was certain of that. He pressed against the bathroom door, and it slowly swung open, creaking loud as a scream. The door bumped against the base of the shower. The curtain was open, and even with his good eye, Jeffrey could see the bathroom was completely empty. The fluttering shape came back, but was bigger this time. It was as if a ghostly gray veil was waving up at him from his feet. What the fuck, he said, feeling the early tendrils of panic curl over him. He wanted to make sure the left side of his face wasn't completely slack. If it was, it looked like he would be busting his ass back to the hungry Chinook to call 911. When Jeffrey looked in the mirror, it took him a few seconds to register what he was seeing. He expected to see his left eyelid hanging low over his pupil, blocking all light like a closed window shade. But when he looked in the mirror, he saw that both his eyes were completely open. He closed both his eyes. Everything went dark. He opened both his eyes. Only the vision in the right eye returned, albeit the lower portion was cut off. His stunned face stared back at him like a dumb pantomime. This can't be happening. The signs of a retinal detachment were all too familiar. He had just given a little girl 2 of them. He turned on the faucet as the yellow light above him flickered again. Jeffrey splashed water on his face, hoping somehow he could become his own Jesus and wash away his blindness. When he straightened and looked back into the mirror, a dark figure loomed behind him, peeking over his shoulder with a menacing grin, her hair the color of dirty snow, pulled up tight in a braided bun. Jeffrey spun around, bringing his hands up to shield himself, but he was alone again in the bathroom, staring at the empty shower. He screamed. And that's it.
Another cliffhanger.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for your attention. Those are the only 2 readings I had.
Okay, no, that's fine. So we could do the Q&A, and if you don't mind, after the Q&A, I would love for you to play excerpts of the song again. That was really a beautiful song, and that would be a good way to close out.
Sure.
So let's talk about this book. How long did it take you to write these stories?
I was really lucky that the first draft came a few years ago, actually, when NaNoWriMo was kind of still a thing, a bit more. And what had been happening, I had just finished my, I think I had submitted my second novel, In Wells's Time, and that was published in 2024 by Unsolicited Press.
I remember that. You were on the show. Yeah, you were doing. Yeah, that was a great book.
Yeah, thank you.
I remember that. Okay.
So I had submitted it, and I just submitted the draft for that, and I said, "Gosh, what am I doing?" And I had been saving up little ideas, like story ideas. Some people pin them on boards. I email things to myself and whatever. And so I had this collection of stories of just like little things that I had wanted to write about, funny things that maybe I had read about or heard or thought of. And I just decided I was going to write them all in that month. And so I just wrote all these stories, and I got to the end of the month, and it was just a draft, and there was about 3 or 4 more stories than the 6. And someone said to me, they're like, "Are they all different?" And I was like, "Yeah." And they're like, "What? Could they be connected?" And I was like, that's interesting. So then I started kind of reworking them and bringing the characters together. But so I was really lucky in that it was sort of different. I didn't have, sometimes I think when I write, I kind of know where it's starting and I kind of know where it wants to go, but I'm sort of a slow kind of, pick my way through the forest writer to get to the end. And so sometimes it might take 4 months to get a first draft out, or a year. Right now I'm on a year and a half on one, and I'm maybe halfway through. I don't know. But all the stories came together in that first draft in about a month of writing these individual short stories, because they were just so fun and they were different characters, and I got really just into it. And then I sort of spookied them up and brought in some witchcraft, and then but some of them, like this last one, that the Lights Out, felt really like felt like almost, it was like, oh, should I write this? Can you write something this bad? It was sort of so it was sort of fun to do in a way. So yeah, these came out pretty quick.
So talk about the character, the menacing character that peers behind him, because not having read the whole thing, I'm wondering, is she death or is she revenge? Like, how did you, when you say witchcraft, is she part of that with witchcraft thing that you brought into the novel?
Into
the stories.
She is, yes. We meet her early on in that story, and she had a separate story that was all hers. That was actually, I had a story with her just swimming through she was doing laps at a YMCA late at night, and but the story was from the perspective of the little swimming pool robot that swims on the bottom of the water. But it was kind of, it didn't really fit, and it was kind of boring. So my advice, I got advice. It was like, it's neat, but take it out. Um, but so that, um, she is, she's around, she has a history in this town and comes up in indirectly in other people's stories. Um, and the women are strong characters in this book. The men are most of, for the most part, are weak, the weak ones. This was a lot, a lot of this, the stuff that going through my mind was a lot of, this was during, Me Too movement, but, and a lot of that has continued. And so just a lot of bad guys. And so I wanted them to get theirs. But so she is the grandmother um, of a patient. And she just sort of seen enough. So you asked, is she death? Is she, the Grim Reaper? Is she what a ghost? Is she? I mean, I think in some ways she's all of those things, or at least
Mm-hmm.
a bringer of those things. In some ways, we don't really see. Well, yeah, I mean um, but she sort of sees through the truth of people, I think, and isn't going to
She's like a
play nice.
Cassandra, sort of, except taking action.
Yeah, she's not. She's gonna play. She's. I mean, she sat back. She tried to. She sits back a little bit, but once she sees, calls the bluff and sees what's happening, she says either someone's gonna take action or I am. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
So the dialogue in your story, at least in the first story, from what you've read, is really exquisite. You really captured the dialogue of teenage boys. Did you have to work hard at that, or because that's a special or unique time in people's lives where their their expression or their dialogue might be not totally articulate, you know, but it rang very true. So do you
Yeah.
want to talk about the dialogue?
Um, I mean, uh, I have my son, my oldest isn't a teen yet. I mean, he's 12. But so, I mean, I hear kids a lot.
Oh, because
I,
you said you
and,
work with kids.
and yeah, and I do work with kids, but so, I mean, I hear them a bit. I recently, I had this discussion with someone else. I think there's a trick that, it's hard, like you said. I mean, they may not be very articulate. Like I always think back to, like, there was that show Dawson's Creek where the kids were like so verbose, way above themselves, but it was became fun that way. I mean, most kids, I mean, they say exactly what they mean, but with very few words, or with lots of just subtle gestures, or looking away, or going like, I don't know, but I don't know could mean a lot. Um,
Mm.
I think there's a temptation. It's so tempting to put in, um, all the, and like vernacular, trendy words spread so fast now. It used to be like, like what was cool might have started in LA or New York or something, but that wouldn't get to Minnesota for like 4 years later. Like it takes so long because you need a college kid to come home from break to say something, and then that spreads, and then the younger sibling hears it, and then it becomes popular. But now with social media, right? Like 6-7 blew up in 2 months, and so there's this
So
temptation to say
explain to me what 6-7 is, because I don't have any little guys. What
it's
is 6-7?
oh, I mean, it's the perfect example of middle of kid words, because it literally means nothing. It doesn't mean a thing. It came from, if I'm, and I could, someone might know this better than me, that what I heard is it was in a song, like a rap song, and it maybe didn't mean much. And then it was in and either that came first, or an interview about a basketball player about how tall are you, and they're like, I don't know, 6'7". That happened, and then and maybe then it went into the rap song. I don't know, but all of a sudden it just was like 6'7", 6'7", and it means nothing. And that's the beauty of it, but it means you relate to the other person. So a kid says it, like, I know what you're doing. I see it too. Let's do it. And that's the beauty of that language. But it can be kind of it's like how can you use it's you have to I think I'm learning that you have to be careful using things like, you know, the other here stuff I hear, you know, like people they like remember when people used to be like, oh, that's funny, not like
Oh
that,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
you
yeah.
know, like you don't want to put that in your book too much because it's like that's like is that gets old, or it's like, that might be funny
Well, that
once,
that's
but
totally gone now.
exactly. So I mean, and it's okay to date yourself or to capture a moment, but anyway, that's I think the challenge is try and it articulate enough. I don't know. I try and talk like them. I try and pretend as I'm reading it out. I read it out loud a lot, dialogue and the stories just to read it. And even now, as I'm reading, I'm like, I could have done like maybe that was too much, or this is too little, or you know,
Oh, the stories are beautiful, beautifully written. So now I want to tackle the topic of the first story.
yeah,
The opening line was the first time they kissed, which is kind of like dropping a bomb in the
hmm
first line, especially in United States in these days. Even though it may be normal exploration at any age, at any
yeah.
ages, because the same thing happens with girls. So, but no one's ever documented it or reflected it back in a book. So talk about finding the courage to do that.
I don't know. I mean, yeah, you know, so you know, I think Alex, in this story, you know, he or Alex and Tanner are best friends. Tanner has feelings for Alex, um, and I think in a way, you know, there's a moment that they share that, there's sincerity in it, and it's but the weight of it, for Alex is too much to handle for a multitude of factors, and that's kind of the sad part about it. And I guess, um, I just
Well,
think,
you did you
I
had
yeah,
something in there that sort of implied that Alex may be in an unsafe place at home.
yeah, yeah. I mean, you know, there's, absolutely, and I think there's a little bit more of that we hear later, and, um, you know, I think part of, I guess, with the first line in general too, I guess, you know, I don't know, that it's brave to like write about this stuff. Like, you know, like I just want to try and tell the best story I can tell.
Hmm.
And I know that short stories are really hard, and I have so much to learn about how to consistently produce them in a way that is effective and that uses language, concisely and effectively. And you know, if you can come out, I mean, I want the book to come out swinging, um,
That story comes
and
out swinging, and
yeah,
of
yeah,
the little bit that I heard of
yeah.
it,
So
it does.
and that's what I want. I think that what from what I've heard, that's what good short stories do. I hope that I hope that it makes it till the final round in the book, and that it I can that it does continue all the way through. I think that's the big fear is, but I'm proud of that story. I like it, and, I I feel for both characters in it, and and you don't have to, and I think part of the point, the message in that story is you don't have to like, they don't have to name their sexuality. It doesn't,
Mm.
like, they don't have to. They can feel different things, and it's okay. And I think that's part of where, um, I felt strongly about that story. It's, you know, life's complex enough without, making people feel bad about things. So
Hmm.
I yeah, I don't know. So it was a fun story to write. It felt important at the time, and and it was, and the river was a good place for those boys to, you know, have a memorable moment.
Well, it's also symbolic because number one, they're taking a journey down the river,
Hmm.
so that's number one. And water is both destructive and cleansing, and like water has that dichotomy
Yeah,
where it's both and. It's not it's this and that.
absolutely.
So let's talk about the writing life.
Mhm.
How do you approach it? Are you a disciplined writer writing every day? Talk about your process. Do you keep journals, that kind of stuff?
Kind of all of it. I try and write as frequently as I can. I think uh, inertia is like the hardest part with a project, and so if you get started, I really try to keep touching projects as much as I can to keep writing, a little bit each day, whether it's over a lunch break, or a Saturday morning, or a little bit at night. If I can get the inertia going, momentum feels easier to maintain. And it's always so slow if the longer you take a break from a project. So I try and write. I mean, I don't write every day. I think about it every day. I definitely am a person who has multiple projects happening at once. I have something being edited currently. I have this book coming out. I have actually a friend and we co-wrote a novel that'll come out with Unsolicited Press in about a year, and that we're just editing really hard right now. So I was kind of thinking about that. I have a little short story I've got just sort of dancing in my head that I'm writing, and I've got my other novel that's been a year and a half that just feels like it's getting away from me. So that one, it's the thing that I like to do, so it doesn't feel like work so much. It's like, when can I do it? When can I, whether it's, when can I go fishing, or when can I go to the movies, like that's I think the thing that is, that's asking for my attention. So it's more often than not, it's like, I haven't done that today, and
Do you keep journals do you keep journals and write notes to yourself as the day goes on?
I do. So what I always do first, if I have a new story idea, or like and it could be something very brief, a one-liner or a little thing, I email myself, and the subject line is story idea, and then I put in the text whatever it is. Maybe it's a sentence, maybe it's a couple things, and that way I can just go into my email and search story idea, and I've got like 50 emails that'll pop up, and they're all tagged that. So that's, I guess, my little thing that I do to keep ideas. I use Google Drive a bit until my work stopped. They started blocking access. So now I have, I've been using online. There's a bunch of different things. The one I use is Dabble. You do have to pay for it. So I'm just trying it for a little while, because that's a cloud-based thing that I can access from multiple points. And so I can access the story from anywhere. So if I have an idea, I can pull it up either on my phone or my laptop or my work computer, and
I think we've all done that.
Yeah, and I can put a few notes in there, so, and that. But I do keep. I have a little like paper journal that I keep in my little messenger bag that I carry with me everywhere, just in case I want to write something by hand. I love the idea of writing a whole draft by hand one day. I love the idea of it. I don't know if it'll happen.
Yeah, but a lot of people do it. I know I, for one, would not be able to understand my handwriting.
That's the thing. Yeah.
But because my brain goes faster than my hand, and it just looks all like scribble. Yep. So, but I know a lot of people who use those legal pads. Even people who have published a lot of novels with the big five use those legal pads.
Yeah, totally.
So a lot of aspiring writers listen to this show or this streamed readings. What is some advice that you have for aspiring writers? People who may be young, or maybe they're old, or either way, they haven't spent a life writing or thinking about writing, but now maybe they want to sit down and start writing. Maybe they're retired, or maybe they're just teenagers. So what advice do you want to give to aspiring writers too?
I think you have to entertain yourself. If you're, I mean, if it's a job, then maybe you don't have the luxury of that. But and maybe you are trying to make a living doing it, which is I think amazing thing if you're able to. But like, if you're enjoying it, and it's hard work, that does, you can enjoy it, but it's still hard work. But if you're enjoying the process, or if the sentence you're writing, the characters are fun, if you're liking them, maybe you're scared of them, maybe you love them, maybe you hate them. But either way, if you're enjoying the emotion that you're creating, I think if you're doing that, and then you're on to something. And I think that's a project worth chasing, and characters worth developing and exploring. And I know that's the minute I get bored in a scene as I'm writing something, I go, something's not right. I need the car needs a flat tire. We need something to happen, if I'm bored.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And so that's the first thing. And then I guess the thing I keep telling myself, I guess, is what I would tell anyone else, is it's like, I mean, we're just like anything else, we're never done learning. Like, I just want to keep getting better. How do I write better? And so trying to answer those questions, whether it's seminars or podcasts. I've listened to a bunch of podcasts here and there. I didn't go to school for writing, so it's just taking, I used to hate getting feedback and feel really embarrassed and and get almost defensive, be like, oh, when it's probably, whoever was giving me that, I'd be like, okay, that's your opinion, that's wrong. But getting over that, and just realizing, like, we're learning, and there's no right way to write, but maybe there's a better way, or a best, or not. There's good ways to tell stories, and I don't know all those yet. So I'm always trying to figure it out. And so, I mean, if you can approach it with that willingness to learn and get better mentality, I think that doing those two things, well, at least you have fun doing it, and maybe create something that you're proud of. Because I think in the end, I mean, like we just meant earlier, like, you want it to resonate. That's where I'm at now with this. Yes, I do. But, like, in the end, right, if I go, yeah, I'm happy I did it, I'm proud of it, then whatever. I mean, I want it to sell, because I want it to go help Summer and Unsolicited Press, and I want it to do well, of course. But I mean, that's art, right? You create it for art's sake.
Yeah, it's art that you create for art's sake, but also I think good literature reflects back to society,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes the ugly parts of itself. I mean, Andrati Roy could come out and say the caste system is a terrible thing in our society, but nobody would have listened to her,
Mm-hmm.
or believed her. But she wrote The God of Small Things, in which she has a lower caste man and an upper caste woman fall in love, and then he's murdered, and then all of a sudden we feel empathy for that character.
Yeah.
Okay, so how about if we listen to that song again, because it was so good? And can you tell people where online they can find it?
Yes, I'm gonna run super fast and get my charger, because my little red light.
Oh no!
1 second.
Okay. By the way, if anybody buys David's book off of off of Unsolicited Press, if you put in Literary Nights, you get 20% off of the book, and you can pre-order the book if you'd like.
I got the charger. Okay.
Okay, great. That is a wonderful song.
Thank you. Yeah, so there's two songs that go to this collection. The other one's called Lorraine, and that you can also find on YouTube and Bandcamp and Spotify. Both of them it's by me, David Nash. So if you look up Dear Alex, and then it's the other From the Burnt Wood. That's sort of how I designated those songs. But yeah, I can just play maybe the last couple verses and a chorus or something.
It's just a beautiful song.
Yeah, well, the rest is all a blur. Your sandy hair of curls, and a kiss that felt like an explosion. I think I fell in love with you. I think you might have felt it too. But in the morning you were distant as the ocean. And do the birds call to me? Do the birds call to thee? Are they calling out our names? Do the birds call to me? Do the birds call to thee? Are you still ashamed? Well, my memory plays tricks on me about this time of night. Thinking about that summer on the river. Nearly 16, naked as Jesus Christ, with a heart that was ready to be broken. And do the birds call to me? Do the birds call to thee? Are they calling out our name? Do the birds call to me? Do the birds call to thee? Are you still ashamed? My memory plays tricks on me about this time of night. Thinking about that summer on the river.
That is absolutely beautiful. I'm
Thank you.
so awed and humbled by your musical talent and by the great writing in your book. I am going to put this back on so that people could see this is what it looks like. The Burntwood Anthology. It comes out on July 13th. If you want to order it from Unsolicited Press, if you put Literary Nights in the codes, you can get 20% off. I do hope that you will go and pre-order this book, and it'll be rolling your way. You can get an early copy. Thank you for this evening, David Nash. Really appreciate your talent and your work and your authenticity when it comes to making art. And also, thank you everyone for joining us. And if you have any other comments, you can just put them under the stream from wherever you're watching in the comment section, and we will see them. Thank you all, and good night.
Thank you.